Welcome to the Neuroscience of Dance podcast. Today we have Alexis Sotwell with us. Hi, Alexis. How are you? Would you
Hi,
like
I'm
to
good,
introduce
thank
yourself?
you. Yes, hi, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, my name is Alexis. I'm a fusion belly dance teacher. I also teach Pilates, yoga, always just really being into movement. So, yeah, that's me.
Great. So my first question for you is when did dance first became more than dance for you?
I would say somewhere around 2012. Okay,
Mhm.
I was doing a PhD in management, which is completely the opposite
Yes.
end of
Yeah.
dance, right? So I was doing that, and in 2012 I went to a dance intensive in Las Vegas. And it was a very intense week, lots of training, lots of very physical activity, and it really just kind of turned my focus on dance from a hobby into something I was really interested in pursuing a little bit more.
Mhm.
So when I came back, I started to take my studies a lot more seriously. I started practicing more seriously. I turned the spare room of our house into a studio with mirrors. And yeah, it just really inspired me to take this a lot more seriously. And then that kind of kick-started a lot of interest in other things as well, like
Mhm.
Pilates and yoga. And yeah, then the following year I finished the PhD. I didn't have anything to go to afterwards. And so I thought, well, I can, sit unemployed for a while and keep applying to jobs and trying to find somewhere to move on to, or I can just do this for a little while and see what
Mhm.
happens. And here we are more than 10 years later.
Wow, amazing. What do you feel like dance has given you that nothing else has? Because you do Pilates, you do yoga, and in 2012 you were like, okay, this is very interesting. So what was about dance specifically, and what does it give you that other things don't give you?
Yeah, I mean, everything gives you something different, right? Every
Mhm. Yeah.
experience that you have and everything that you engage with gives you something unique.
Hmm.
With dance, I feel like when I'm dancing, I feel the most free and I feel the most authentic as myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's just something about it. It's an outlet for creativity, but it's also expressing the things that I maybe can't put into words or sometimes don't want to put into words. I don't want
Hmm.
to speak my feelings out loud sometimes, but I can dance them. And I don't feel like I get that outlet with any other movement practice or any other kind of hobby or interest that I have. And yeah, dance has seen me through some pretty dark times and scary times and things that I didn't want to acknowledge. And yeah, it's always been there to kind of help me through. And also, I'm really kind of shy generally, so it's helped me to connect with other people as well. I've made some really lovely
Mhm.
friendships through dance. So yeah, if we have dance in common, then that kind of opens a gateway for me to be again more myself and not hide myself from people.
Mhm. Amazing. And was there like any moment where you had like self-doubt, or you felt like you wanted to stop dancing, or you didn't want to keep forwards? And
Yes.
how did you deal with that?
Yeah, lots of times, and I'd say less so recently. More like earlier in my dance journey, things would affect me more, and now I don't know if I want to say that I'm jaded, but you know, maybe I am a bit more resilient to things now. Is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, earlier on, I mean, you know, dealing with other people who maybe are a little bit jealous of what you're doing. Yeah, I had an experience with who I thought was a friend, and yeah, planting some seeds of doubt in my mind about my ability and what people think of me and that type of thing, and that kind of negatively affected me and made me want to stop dancing until I thought about what that would mean and what that would take away from me. And actually it's never dance that makes you want to stop. It's always something else that's influencing that. So when I kind of looked internally and thought about what my life would look like without dance, I realized actually, no, I don't want to lose that. That's important for me. So yeah, I had to start cutting out that kind of talk, and listening to people talking negatively about you. You just think, well, it's a them problem, not a me problem, and I'm just going to focus on dance. So there's been that. I also had a knee injury several years ago, and I did actually stop dancing for around 6 months to heal, and that was a very dark time in my life because I missed dancing and moving so much. And you'll know as a mover that when you can't do it, it's just debilitating, isn't it? You really feel like you're missing something. So yeah.
What would you say to, because that there's a lot of people who, I'm glad you kept dancing and you kept going and you believed in yourself, but a lot of dancers do stop because of what other people say, or this their own self-doubt, or maybe not so supportive dance teachers, or maybe even like injury, and they stop because they think like, okay, I'm not talented, I'm doomed, I should stop. What would you tell them to like in order like to help them, or what has helped you continue? Of course, like dance was really important for you, so you decided, like, you thought about what you would lose if you stopped dancing, but sometimes for some dancers that's not enough. So what other things have helped you?
Yeah, wow, it's a really hard question to answer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine, that's fine. I would say, think about what dance gives you, how important it is in your life. Yeah, look at what you would be missing out on if you didn't have it, but also what does it give you? It's a relationship. I feel like dance is a relationship. You give it something and it gives you something back. And sometimes the answer is to stop and find something else. But I think for a lot of people, that's not the answer. And it's looking at what is making you feel that way. Is it dance or is it an external factor? So I think that would be my advice, is to have a think about exactly what it is that's making you want to stop, and whether there's something about that you can change, and how that changes your relationship with dance.
A lot of people also tell me, I'm getting old, or this is happening, or there's a lot of people that think there's like an age or a body type or a certain level that you can achieve or not. And like, especially because like a lot of people start dancing as adults like you and me, and they think, okay, this is never going to get to the level of like being professional. So what are your feelings about this? Because you started dances also as an adult, and then like obviously like you've been through a lot of different things, and what would you say to people? Be like, okay, like I'm too old for this, or I'm not capable.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's no such thing as too old, or restrictions on body type. I feel like those kinds of limitations are in people's heads, and yeah, I mean, I feel like if you want to do something, you should go for it. I'm really an advocate of that, like, push past all those limitations. But I understand it's that negative self-talk, isn't it? And we've all been through it. We all go through it, where we kind of talk
dialogue.
talk ourselves out of doing things. I do it myself still. I'm aware of it, and I still do it. So I mean, as a teacher and a choreographer, I try not to focus on people's age, bodies, ability. I mean, ability, yes, you need to focus, but that never stops me from working with somebody. And yeah, I would like to think that I'm an inclusive
Hmm.
teacher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would always encourage people to just go for it. I have a student who's been with me for many years, and they are not a natural mover. And when they came into my class, you know, your first judgment is like, "Ooh, okay, we've got a lot of work here." But they still keep coming to class,
Mm.
they still keep showing up, and they enjoy themselves. And no, they're not the most amazing dancer, and perhaps they never will be, but they're finding joy in what they're doing. And that's always my goal, is to help people find joy in the movement. And so, yeah, I think it's a shame when, you know, dancers start to let things like, oh, well, I've reached this stage in
Hmm.
dance, and the only way to go now is to become a professional.
Hmm.
So what's the point? You know, I
Hmm.
hear this so
Yeah.
frequently. And again, you have to look back at, well, do you want to do that?
Hmm.
Is that your goal? And if it's not, then what's missing? You know, why aren't you happy with where you are?
Hmm.
I always think that there is more, not just being a professional dancer,
Yeah.
not just being a teacher. There is more to go to, you know.
Hmm. And you do have a background in psychology, so I wonder, like, how does that help you and inform you as a dancer, as a teacher, choreographer?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep in mind, you know, as a teacher, especially people's different ways of learning. And yeah, I like to focus a lot on the negative self talk, because I think we all go through it so much. So I try and
Yeah.
keep a positive attitude in the classes and encourage people to look at themselves with kind eyes, because I think we can get
Mm.
so, with dance, you can get so judgmental of yourself,
Yeah.
especially
Hmm.
looking in the mirror. Yeah, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we see something we don't like, maybe, and all that baggage comes into the studio with you when you're in
Hmm.
front of the mirror. You know, you look at the person next to you and they're nailing it, and you feel like you're flailing around, you know, and you can just start to get really bogged down by stuff.
Hmm.
And so I try to encourage people to let go of that, not look at each other, focus on yourself, you know, and yeah, that's kind of where I come at it from in terms of a psychological perspective,
Hmm.
is the positive psychology. And
Yeah.
yeah, trying to encourage people to get rid of that negative self-talk. I have had to
Hmm.
do it to myself. You know, I've studied many dance styles, and every time you walk into a new class, you're a
Hmm.
beginner in that
Yeah.
class. You know, and you do look around and you're like, what am I doing here? Oh my God, I'm not a professional dancer. I can't keep up with this. I'm just going to hide at the back. And you're like, hold on, come on. You've never done this before. You have to give yourself some grace. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely. What do you wish that, that dance classes, studios had more, or what you wish you had, like when you were a beginner, that your teachers had more knowledge on, or they brought on more into the studio and to the classes?
I think probably from like my early dance education experience, definitely more cultural context of all the dance styles that I've
Mhm.
studied. I feel like that's something that's really been missing in a lot of dance education. You know, not only in belly dance or Middle Eastern dance, it's a big topic in Middle Eastern
Mhm.
dance right now. But yeah, like, you know, going to hip hop and ballet and jazz, and you don't get told anything about the history of these styles. And at least I had a little bit of that from my first belly dance teacher. She would give like little bits of information, but nothing too deep. But
Mhm.
yeah, I really feel like that connection to where the dance comes from in any dance form has really been missing in my dance education, as
Mhm.
I've experienced it. And it's something I've had to go out and find out about myself and be curious
Yeah.
about myself.
Hmm.
And it's something that I've noticed in like newer students in the style that I teach. is that they're not getting that from their teachers necessarily either. So yeah, it's interesting to see it's a cycle that continues, that we're
Yeah.
missing that. And then also, yeah, coming from that kind of positive approach and
Mhm.
encouraging people to look at themselves with kind eyes and that kind of thing. I think we could do with a little bit more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. What has dance told you about you that your mind didn't know or wasn't aware of? Like, what has dance informed you that you wouldn't know unless you danced?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. I think maybe one of the things that I've learned from just being involved in movement is that you are also allowed to rest.
Mm.
That's probably something that I've learned. That's not about myself. Well, yeah, it is about myself as well.
Mhm.
It's a more recent discovery that I've had, that you are allowed to give your body space to
Mm.
rest and to breathe. I would say, like, going back to that pivotal moment in 2012 where I started taking dance more seriously, I very quickly was injured because I was working too hard. And then
Mm.
again, in a few more years, and not giving myself time to recover, you know. And then again, in a few more years was the same. I did lots of training back to back, wasn't really taking care of myself properly, wasn't sleeping enough, wasn't resting enough, and was injured again. And and that takes you out, you know. That's the injury that took me out for 6 months.
Mm.
So yeah, I think you are allowed to
Mm.
take that time to recover your body. I know professional dancers they just push through injury. I did the same thing. You just push, 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 push
Mhm.
until you break, and then that could be the
Yeah.
end. Like you said, it could be the end, and I don't
Yeah.
want it to be the end.
So you consider yourself like someone who overdoes a lot, and then dance kind
Yes.
of like came and tell you, hey, you overdo a lot and
Yeah.
you are allowed to rest.
Yeah, I think I don't have a diagnosis, but I think I'm ADHD. I think, and I
Mm-hmm.
get hyper focused on
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
I've always been like this. I get
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with something and just drill it to the bone, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
become completely hyper focused, and to my detriment sometimes. I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say that now for you are the signs that your nervous system is regulated, that you overdoing, that you need to stop and rest?
Um, I My breathing is a good sign. I'm
Mm-hmm. Okay.
asthmatic. Yeah, I'm asthmatic, and I notice that when I'm working too much, I don't breathe as much. It's so interesting. Like, I hold my breath, or yeah, my breathing gets very shallow, and then I start feeling dizzy, and I'm like, why do I feel dizzy?
Okay.
Oh, did I breathe in the last 5 minutes? So yeah, that's something that I've noticed physically about my
Mm-hmm.
body when I'm focusing too hard on a task. I stop breathing or don't breathe enough. So that's always a physical
That's
sign.
interesting because I see a lot of dancers, they forget to breathe. So there's this hyper focus on movement and technique and any errors that are happening, and they forget this to breathe. And a lot of times in my
Yeah.
classes and workshops, I say, breathe, breathe. I remind people to breathe. And that really helps. Like what I used to say is, imagine that breath is tied to is what feeding the movement, and that helps them like kind of like remember, because like that is what actually regulating the nervous system. And as I teach in my workshops, without nervous system regulation, the movement doesn't happen, because the movement starts in the brain and in the nervous
Mm-hmm.
system. And so if we don't support that part, no matter how much we train and how strong the muscles are, how flexible you are, like if the baseline where the movement actually starts, it's not regulated, then everything else kind of falls off balance. So it's really important to keep
Mm.
that in mind. How do you how do you regulate in those moments? Like you notice, okay, I can't breathe. Like what do you do to actually, regulate your nervous system?
Yeah, I will stop completely and I
Okay.
will start attending to my breath. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, I'm asthmatic, so not
Yeah.
breathing is not a good thing. It's not
Yeah,
a
of
good thing
course.
for
Of
anybody.
course.
But yeah, for an asthmatic, it's not good. So yeah, I will stop everything and just start to focus my attention inwards. And yeah, really, I like to do. I learned this in yoga, like the 360-degree breath, where you breathe into the belly, the rib cage, and the back, and you feel it expanding and contracting, and starting to like lengthen each inhale and exhale. So taking a little bit more time for each one, and then starting to lengthen the exhale more than the inhale, and so on. So yeah, I try and do that for a little bit until I feel better. I can go back to what I was doing
See,
and try and be
yeah.
more mindful about what I'm doing.
So talking about this, how do you overall keep yourself regulated? Like what practices you do that support your dance? Obviously, you do Pilates and yoga, and that's amazing. But are there any other like little rituals, little practices that you do that are not dance, but they support your dance?
I'm trying to think. I mean, yeah, Pilates and yoga are big ones. I mean, before doing like a performance or before teaching, I like to be alone for a moment. So especially before I go on stage, I'll wait in the wings for the performer right before me as they're dancing, and again I'll just focus on my breathing and feeling connection to the floor. I do this before teaching as well. And yeah, making sure my hands are warm. My hands are always cold, so that's something that I do before performing and teaching, is like rub my hands together and do this type of things, just get some tingly sensations. And sometimes
That
like
helps
stamp the
regulate as well.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes stamp the floor a little bit as well, so my feet feel that tingly sensation as well. And yeah, if I'm performing, I always give a very, very loud clap. I'm not going to do it now, otherwise it will
Of course.
explode the speaker. But yeah, I'll do a really, really loud clap for the person before me, even if I wasn't watching them. Just give them a big round of applause again to get that tingly sensation in my hands. Yeah, and I think it just helps me ground myself and get out of my head and into my body.
Mm, amazing. And as a someone with a background in psychology, uh, and I know like you've seen my work and you follow my work. And so what is for you the importance of like neuroscience and psychology? What for you in your point of view val adds value to dance and dance teaching, and how it has also helped you?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's important for dancers and dance students to understand that movement originates in the brain. The brain is always sending signals to the body on what to do and how to react. And so, yeah, I feel like without neuroscience, we can't fully understand what we're doing as dancers. So I think
Yeah.
that's such an exciting, aspect of your work, bringing that connection between those two fields, because you would think, as a member of the general public, that those two things are completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Dance and neuroscience, how could they possibly be interlinked? So I think it's so wonderful that you're bringing that together, and finding the connection between those things and informing dance practice so that we can practice more safely and more creatively and overcoming different barriers that we perhaps put in front of ourselves as
Mhm,
humans,
mhm.
with our creativity and movement. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And yeah, psychology, I mean, understanding people and connecting
Mhm.
with people,
Yeah.
how to connect with people and how to make people understand and how to learn from each other. Yeah, psychology again is just so important in dance. I think people underestimate how much the brain and the
Yeah.
body are linked. You know, they think of
Yes,
them as these two
absolutely.
disparate things, and they're not. You know, your brain is inside your body. Yeah, I just think it's wonderful that more people are paying attention to that and starting to
Mhm,
connect those two.
mhm. Absolutely. So there's always like a focus on the body, and then when you bring the layer of psychology and neuroscience, you start understanding how to make uh how when you understand how, as you say, how the brain produces movement, then you understand how to make that movement better, and you understand also how to teach it better because this is better understanding of the
Yeah,
nervous system and brain of the person in front of you. And then psychology adds this layer to, because we are not just brain and bodies, we are very complex human beings, and
yeah,
psychology is here to help, take care of our own mental needs, but also be aware of any mental struggles, because dance is really amazing and is really healing. And when we are having injuries or mental struggles, then it kind of like defeats the purpose, and is,
mm,
as you said before, is never dance specifically, is all the other things happening that are not
yeah,
helping that process.
yeah,
And, people tend to give up very quickly because they got injured, because they are having like some self-esteem problems, or they are struggling with stress, performance anxiety. And if they have the right support, then dance becomes better. And dance was never really the problem, it's really like the
mhm,
surrounding environment. And
yeah.
this leads me to my next question. Uh, what do you think are the main issues in terms of like within dance education, in terms of the teaching environments? And because you've been a teacher for so long, and you also been a student, so you've been in the other side. And so, what do you think is the biggest struggles? And if you could change anything, what would you change?
So in terms of what's missing, yeah, that the cultural aspect, as I said before, and yeah, as you were speaking, I was just thinking like wanting to go back to that question about what was missing from the first your
Mhm,
first experience at dance, and continuing actually is that acknowledgement of mental health and how to support people when they're going through something. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't be an expert in everything. So you know, as a dancer, I can't be an expert in counseling somebody
of
and
course, of course.
you know, healing them and identifying their injuries, and you have to understand kind of your scope of what you're
Hmm.
qualified to do, as I know you understand.
Hmm.
But having some awareness of it, I
Hmm.
think, is really important, and maybe just acknowledging who you can refer people to if it's something that is out of your remit. And I
Hmm.
think that's something I've observed. I think during my time as a teacher with some of my fellow teachers. That they're trying to do everything and be all of those people in one, instead of acknowledging that this is my knowledge and experience, and I can refer someone this way if I'm not experienced in that particular thing. But yes, an acknowledgement of mental health and how people's backgrounds impact who they are
Hmm.
as they come to dance, and how to support them, and yeah, getting them involved in dance. So you know, you get people who are very shy and how to
Yeah.
bring them out of their shell and bring them to
Yeah.
dance. Then you get the extrovert and how to, you know, integrate them in the same class and things like that. And then again, that's a good thing with psychology, that you can kind of incorporate everybody's learning styles in the way that you teach. But yeah, missing from dance education and how I would rejig it is definitely a bit more understanding of mental health and support, and your nervous system education, as you were talking about. Would love to see more of that in
Mhm.
dance classes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, amazing. I completely agree. Like this awareness, having awareness can you can never be like an expert. Like it takes many years of study to be an expert of on anything, but to be willing to go and learn from the experts and get some
Yeah.
awareness and get some advice. So at least because without that knowledge, without the awareness, you don't know how who to even refer to and how to refer and when the referral is even needed. So
Yeah.
yeah, that becomes really, really important. And
Yeah.
my last question for you, oh, sorry, you want to say anything else?
No, sorry, I was just going to say I remember a fellow dancer who, she wanted to be able to kind of identify people's injuries and things like that, and they would come to her and with problems, shoulder problems or knee problems, and it would be like, oh well, you might have this. You're like, but you can't say that because you don't know, like you're not a doctor or you're not a
Yeah.
physiotherapist. And so, yeah, as you were saying,
Mhm.
it's important not to,
Yeah.
diagnose people when you don't know what you're doing,
Mhm.
but to be willing to learn and refer on
Mhm.
as needed. Yeah.
Mhm. What trainings have you? This is not my last question, but it just came up now. What trainings did you do that you think helped you with this? Like that helped you get a bit more awareness of all those aspects?
Yeah, I've done a lot of training.
Trainings or books or things you like resources in general.
Yeah, so many things, so many things. There's some great books on the psychology of dance. I think, is it Jim Taylor? I think that's one. And there's another one, I can't remember the author. There's a couple of books on psychology of dance, which are really interesting. And yeah, in terms of, injury prevention, I'm trying to think of the names of the authors. Eric Franklin has a lot of nice stuff about like dancing through imagery and conditioning for dancers and that type of thing. So there's lots of resources out there, just off the top of my head thinking of
Yeah.
those. And yeah, in terms of training, obviously Pilates has been wonderful for the
Hmm.
kind of conditioning side of dance and supporting people through that. And yeah, I've done like pre and postnatal training as well within
Wow.
Pilates, so that I can support anybody who's pregnant or has just
Hmm.
had a baby, because being in belly dance, it's such a female dominated world,
Yeah.
that so often my students were pregnant or they just had a baby and I wouldn't know what to do with them because I'd be
Hmm.
worried about hurting them. So now I
Hmm.
have that education as well, so I can more support the people that I work with.
Hmm. And yeah, so my last question is you have achieved so much. You do events, you are a choreographer, you are a teacher, you are an amazing dancer, amazing performer. And so what would you say that has helped you the most in this amazing journey that you've taken?
I think what's helped me the most is having focus,
Mhm.
but starting, especially in recent years, to acknowledge that I'm aging is one thing. I have a child now and she takes a lot of my time.
I
And
imagine.
so I have learned also to let go a little bit.
Mhm.
I have acknowledged that over the years I have very much been a control freak.
Mhm.
Maybe that's an ADHD thing too, I don't know. But I like to have
Mhm.
control over everything, and yeah, since having my child, especially, that control has had to be let go a little bit, and I've learned to go with the flow a little bit more. And I think that that has made me a stronger teacher, a stronger dancer, and a stronger choreographer because I'm no longer committed to everything being perfect and exactly the way I
Mhm.
want it to be. And sometimes things are imperfect, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with something being imperfect. Um, and yeah, that overtraining thing that we were talking about always is driven by perfection and wanting things to
Mhm.
be perfect. And being able to say that sometimes there isn't perfect and there's room to grow, and that's okay. That's been really healing, actually. to be able to say it's okay if I'm not at the top of my game right now. It means I have somewhere to go from here, and that's exciting. And so, yeah, I think embracing that, and that's been a really healing experience
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So, like, is this ability to, okay, you go with the flow and you allow things to also happen and be a bit outside of your control. This kind of goes a little bit into like improvising a little bit, letting things also take their way, and instead of you trying to control. And yeah, do you think so it is like this aging aspect and having a child what brought up that to your awareness, or is it something that was already lingering there?
I think it was lingering there already. Like, people had pointed out to me that I like to be very much in control and that I should allow people to help me. Maybe it's a Taurus thing. Someone told me that Taurians, I don't know if you believe in that, but yeah, people told me that Taurians like to be in control and not ask for help. And I feel like that's definitely me, but I also think maybe that was the way I was brought up as well, that
Yeah.
I had to do everything myself.
Mhm.
It sounds crazy when I say it that way because my parents are not like that at all. But I have felt throughout my life that if I wanted something, I would have to do it myself. I would have to get it
Mhm.
myself, and that I couldn't rely on other people to do it for me. If I wanted something to happen, it was down to me. And so I think that's carried on into my adult life.
Yeah.
And yeah, lots of people pointed out to me, oh, you're a control freak. You
Mhm.
need everything to be exactly the way that you want it to be, and you never ask anybody for help. And maybe you should ask people for
Mhm.
help.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, getting older, I started to realize that yeah, it's not a weakness to ask people for help. It's a strength, and
Mhm.
it's a strength to trust people as well, and that they're not going to let you down.
Mhm.
And usually, people don't let you down if you give
Yeah.
them the opportunity to. Usually, they do a good job, exactly as you want it. So, yeah, it's been an interesting process to start letting go and letting people and delegating. There we go.
Mhm.
There's the word I was looking for. To delegate and yeah, to trust people. Yeah.
Mhm. And where you see yourself like in the future, like what are your plans in terms of dance?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I said, I practice a little less than I quite a lot less than I used to because of being a mom. My life is a little bit on hold right now. While I look after her, she is at home most of the time with me. So at the moment, all I'm focusing on is teaching mainly and performing. And performances are few and far between these days, but performing occasionally and really focusing on my teaching and enjoying that. And yeah, in the future, as she starts to get more independence and going to
Mhm.
school and that type of thing, I want to start reclaiming some of that passion and joy for myself, and focusing maybe a little bit less on the teaching, or being a bit more, not less on the teaching, but being a bit more choosy about where I put my time, and focusing on myself, and yeah, getting some new skills, maybe picking up another dance style that I can challenge myself with, and going back to doing regular training and things like that. It's just stuff that I've really missed over the past 2 years or 3 years, really, with being pregnant as well. Just, yeah, having less time for me. And so I'm excited to do that again.
Amazing. I cannot wait to see where you go next.
Me
You're always
too.
so amazing, so surprising. So I
Oh,
can
thank you.
really not wait. And thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis.